Good afternoon and welcome to the Sam Lacrosse Show. Happy Monday. There is an old saying in Christianity that states, quote, "The blood of the martyrs waters the seeds of the church." Tragically, there is no truer statement in Christianity than that one. Christians, ever since Jesus ascended into heaven and tossed us the reins for building his church via the Great Commission, have always been the target of various types of power structures for persecution. As Jesus himself said in chapter 15 of John's Gospel, quote from verse 18, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. Remember what I told you, quote, a servant is not greater than his master, end quote. If they persecute me, they will also persecute you. If they obeyed my teachings, they will also obey yours also. They will treat you this way because of my name, for they do not know the one who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not be guilty of sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. Whoever hates me hates my Father as well. If I had not done among them the works no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. As it is, they have seen, and yet they have hated both me and my Father. But this is to fulfill what is written in the law, quote, they hated me without reason, end quote. Quote, hate is a word that is tossed around far too casually and far too often in our era. It is too oftenly subjectively defined, which therefore makes that definition lazy. In the past decade, for example, quote, hate, mostly used by the progressive left, has been used to describe one broad category, anything they don't like. From Tucker Carlson to Fox News to weightlifting to Joe Rogan to Red 40, anything that the modern left has had in its crosshairs is not only misaligned with their values, it's, quote, hateful. Strangely, to some on the more secular right, those who don't look at the world through a biblical lens, they didn't understand this. They have so outsourced their own responsibility, so blinded themselves to their own holier than thou, nicer than thou, milquetoast, chamber of commerce style disposition that they have no idea what they're truly up against. Why do they hate us? They ask. We're just trying to lower taxes. We want to advocate for traditional values, quote unquote, faith, family, freedom, rah. How detached, how foolish, how naive, how stupid. This attitude, this immense lack of perspective from conservative leadership in the modern era, and Christian leadership in the modern era, mind you, is exactly why the left has plummeted us into oblivion over the entirety of my life and beyond. Instead of complaining about it, or more than likely outsourcing it to a nighttime Fox News host, Q Mark Levin, to yell and scream until veins pop out of their heads for you to talk about it, would be actually better to answer ask the following question. Who are we actually up against? It's the Democrats, they say, the, quote, radical left, which they can't even define. Socialists, college kids with liberal arts degrees, rah. How detached, how foolish, how naive, how stupid. Where has this gotten us to actually not even defeating, but even understanding who opposes us? Anywhere? Nowhere. At all. Which is why we have joyfully allowed them to kick us in the face every single day for, at minimum, the past 40 years. So given this ineptitude, allow me to interject a new answer to the, quote, who are we up against question. Evil. Let me be clear. Is every Democrat evil? No. Is every left-leaning person evil? No. This is not a generalization of every single person that opposes the values of Christianity and conservatism, obviously. But as we have seen over and over again, given our conversations of hate in our country, hate doesn't appear out of nowhere. It must be cultivated, developed, fostered, and then mobilized. Hate, thankfully, takes a while until the last phase begins to unfold. But when it does unfold, which it has been, nothing is more ugly. True hatred, when unleashed, destroys things. It is demonic, evil, and vile. Now, with the question of who are we up against answered, now we can finally answer the question of, quote, why do they hate us? At the core, the hateful people that have unleashed violence on our country do not hate, quote unquote, conservatives. They do not hate, quote, Donald Trump or, quote, MAGA. They don't even hate Republicans. Instead, their hatred runs far deeper into what we have started this episode out with, into the oldest hatred of all time, a hatred of God. The hatred of God and everything he created is where all other forms of hate stem from. Pick your poison and you will find some kind of anti-Christian motif within it. Classism, murder, racism, theft, etc. None of it is biblical. None of it is of God, which is why all who commit it are living in sin, outside of the design of God, which is what sin is defined as. This is why the Christians who speak the loudest, the Christians who truly understand just how deep the hatred of God that they pray to goes, are always the biggest targets. The people who know they're participating in anti-Christian demonic behavior know they're doing so, even if they can't pinpoint what it is by name. It is against conscience, against humanity, against nature. We all feel it, whether or not we know God or not. So when someone threatens the anti-Christian worldview, as millions have over the course of Christendom, particularly in the last century in places like Africa and the Middle East, they must be killed for it. This pathology is canonized and exemplified by the first Christian martyr, Stephen. In the 7th chapter of the book of Acts, the original disciples of Jesus are spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ in immensely hostile territory. Remember, just months ago, their Lord and leader was crucified and put to death for speaking about the kingdom of heaven. They all knew the risks. At any moment, they could end up hanging on just as similar of a cross as Jesus once did. As 11 of the original disciples start to spread the good news, plus Matthias, who replaces Judas Iscariot, they began to recruit more and more people to their ranks. One of the most fiery and passionate recruits is a man named Stephen, who had a particular style of preaching the word of God. This all comes to a head when he boldly and courageously does what Jesus did so often, rebuked what he deemed as a particular nasty breed of sin, self-righteousness, with the most self-righteous groups of people in the Holy Land, the Pharisees. Quoting from Acts 51, quote, "You are stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears. You always resist the Holy Spirit, as your fathers did, so do you. Which of the prophets did your fathers not persecute? And they killed those who foretold the coming of the Just One, of whom you now have become the betrayers and murderers, who have received the law by the direction of angels, and have not kept it." End quote. Needless to say, the Pharisees didn't take too kindly to this, but instead of simply tisk-tisking at Stephen, like they had done with so many others, including Jesus up until they killed him, they decided to take their hatred of God to a new level at the direction of their leader Saul, who would later become the Apostle Paul. Quote from Acts 7:54. "When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed at him with their teeth. But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven and saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing at the right hand of God, and said, quote, 'Look, I see the heavens opened, and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God.' Then they cried out with a loud voice, stopped their ears, and ran at him with one accord. And they cast him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at the feet of a young man named Saul. And they stoned Stephen as he was calling on God and said, quote, 'Lord Jesus, receive my spirit.' Then he knelt down and cried out with a loud voice, quote, 'Lord, do not charge them with this sin.' And when he had said this, he fell asleep." We found out the hard way just how true this hatred of God, this inherent urge to the hateful to martyr and slaughter those who bear the cross of Christ was in the middle of last week. I did not expect to record this episode. No one across this space expected what happened this past week to happen. But it did, and it has. So we must do our best to discuss what happened, why it happened, where we go, and what we do. Charlie Kirk was the best of us. He was a Christian, a father, a husband, a patriot, a warrior, and now a martyr. Charlie did things the right way. He did not lie, cheat, or steal. He earned every bit of his success. He did the dirty work, so much so as to snag coffee for Donald Trump Jr. while running Turning Point USA during the 2016 campaign. He went to Greenland with J.D. Vance while still talking with people about the joys of becoming a father. He preached the gospel firmly, lovingly, and unapologetically. He shifted the narrative on what was cool for young people, and especially for young men. Going to church, getting married, having kids, doing something with your life. In a world that has been gutted of male role models of all ages, Charlie was one of the few that people could point to as one. And this group included me. As mentioned, I came of age politically when Charlie was just starting to become a thing. He was only 3 years older than me at the time of his assassination last Wednesday. His birthday is 3 days before mine. We both came from the Midwest. We came of age at the same time. We were, in essence, the same person. The thing that inspired me so much about Charlie was that he had all the courage that I wished I possessed. I entered college in the fall of 2016. I loved Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. Yet I would never say that I did. A professor might give me a bad grade. My Tinder match won't sleep with me. I'm already socially awkward enough. I can't call myself a conservative. Charlie Kirk called me out on all of my nonsense and showed me for who I really was. A pathetic and weak coward who needed to grow a backbone to share my values with the world. Charlie Kirk got punched in the face constantly, particularly earlier in his career, by not only the left, by the establishment GOP political class, by donors, by institutional media companies like Fox News, and still did up until the point of his death. Charlie took every single one on the chin, spit back at them, and told them to hit him again. He got hard during that period and became one of the most unstoppable young Americans this country has ever seen. But what was even more inspiring was that Charlie never got complacent. He never stopped learning. He was the most well-rounded, intelligent person, both culturally and politically, I maybe have ever seen. He knew how to talk with everyone, young, old, left, right, moderate, MAGA. He never stopped being curious. He never stopped asking questions. Most importantly, he never stopped trying to understand people and to persuade them to his side. In doing so, he made the youth of America the most Christian, conservative generation on record, and won Donald Trump back the White House in 2024 because of it. But the most amazing thing about Charlie Kirk to me was something that many didn't know. Many thought Charlie to be a purely political actor. That's wrong. In actuality, Charlie was pivoting away from politics and towards something he deemed the most important part of his life, his faith in Jesus Christ. In conversations with people like Steve Deace, Mark Driscoll, Jack Hibbs, and others, Kirk had a plan to leverage the Turning Point USA platform to not mint new conservatives, but to mint new Christians. That was why he put so much energy and passion behind TPUSA Faith alongside his wife, Erica. Charlie believed correctly that America was primarily able to exist because of Protestant Christianity. To preserve America, we needed a revival of Protestant Christianity. Charlie, an outspoken evangelical, was going to make that his next mission. But he never got the chance due to that fateful day on September 10th, 2025 at Utah Valley University. When I first got the news, I immediately went onto X to see if it was true. It couldn't have been, right? I wish it wasn't. The first thing I saw was the long-distance video of Charlie Kirk, the greatest American evangelist and greatest young person in America since Billy Graham, and the most iconic young American for young conservatives, taking a bullet to the neck. I eventually stumbled upon the close-up video as well. If you haven't seen either, don't watch them, because I wish I hadn't. I've asked many questions in the aftermath of the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk, one that will certainly go down as one of the darkest and most consequential moments in the history of our country. Have you crossed a new level of political violence where not politicians but commentators, civilians like me and Charlie are targeted? What is this going to do with the young people at that campus? How in the world does a conservative movement replace Charlie Kirk? Which it can't. But the one question I, and thankfully most others have asked most frequently, is far more humane. Why Charlie? Everyone involved in bringing back traditional values has asked themselves this question over the past 48 hours, the time of this recording. Roger Stone put out an article on his Substack entitled, quote, "The Day Conservatism Lost Its Innocence in the Aftermath of Kirk's Assassination." This is both correct and incorrect. It is correct in the fact that Charlie was a good person, a genuinely good person, the only one who could successfully converse with all members of the conservative movement and also waded into the waters of the left. Charlie never antagonized, never provoked, never did anything incendiary to send anyone into a frenzy. And yet Charlie Kirk was also not innocent in the best way possible. Charlie never shied away from a fight, ever. From the moment I first became aware of Charlie 10 years ago up until the moment he was killed, Charlie was always throwing punches, not to harm, but to win. Charlie was not a sadist. He was not vindictive. He was not trying to punish people. He was trying to be better than them in the complete opposite way of the Pharisees, by becoming a better man himself. So that said, why Charlie? Charlie Kirk was killed for being normal. Charlie Kirk was killed for being the American dream. He was killed for being a kind of awkward, not that handsome, kind of gangly, and very normy man who was trying to live, and did live, an extraordinary life. He was killed for wanting the basic things, the permanent things, to love his God, to marry a woman, to be a present father, and to stand up for what he believed in. The American left hated Charlie Kirk, and the American left assassinated Charlie Kirk because they hate normalcy. Charlie Kirk was not a hateful person. He did not deserve what happened to him. But yet, has any normal person deserved what they've been forced to endure over the past decade? Radical gender ideology books in schools, mask mandates for 2-year-olds, inflation that puts most Americans in $30,000 of credit card debt, a moralizing disparagement of the church, lying to young people about the benefits of marriage and family? No. Charlie Kirk was the face of normal, the face of the common man, the face of the everyday American. Charlie Kirk stood up for normal, common, and everyday Americans. The hateful left and their demonic, anti-human, anti-normal, anti-God followers killed him for it. Bullet casings were found with pro-transgender and Antifa slogans on them. The shooter described Kirk's rhetoric as, you guessed it, quote, hateful. All of the talking points of the hateful left and their organs of the mainstream press were used to justify the slaughter of one of America's brightest young lights in front of a crowd of young people who themselves wanted to be brighter lights. But more importantly, Charlie Kirk was killed for the exact same reason that Stephen was, for preaching the gospel, for telling people about Jesus Christ. Remember, all hate stems at some place from a hatred of God. The Bible commands in Psalm 97 that those who love God must hate evil, those who oppose God. Why? Because those who oppose God love evil. It's that simple. Charlie Kirk knew that better than anyone in the conservative movement and acted on it better than anyone in the conservative movement. I've watched many of my heroes melt before my very eyes when discussing the tragedy of Charlie Kirk's assassination. I've cried more in the past 48 hours over Charlie, my country, my faith, and my culture than ever in my life. But one of them that didn't melt provided a perspective on Charlie's death that could and should inspire all of us. Jason Whitlock, who knew Kirk mostly from afar, stated that on his show, in a way, the way that Charlie Kirk went out was the best way to go out. If you're a man so righteous, so willing to fight evil, so willing to pursue truth, and to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ, like Stephen, like all Christian martyrs, that the best way you can go out is to have Satan himself send a demon to kill you, which is exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk. Matt Walsh said similarly, if hell rejoices when you die, you ran a good race. And Charlie Kirk ran a very good race. I am selfishly so sad for me, for us, for our country. But I am, in a way, so happy for Charlie, who is now where he wanted to be more than any other place, with his Lord Jesus, who has wiped every tear from his eyes and welcomed him into the kingdom of God with those who served him well, with those wonderful words that we all hope to hear. Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done indeed, Charlie. Rest in peace, my friend. Okay, mostly got through okay. All right. Whew, oh boy, here we go. So, okay, this is the most important thing I want to talk about after this, because I do believe it's so incredibly important that we discuss really what Charlie would want, I think, and not what any of us specifically want, because we all want specific things, especially after something that's this horrible. And I wanted to talk about that before we got into anything else. So before what we do, what this means, everything else. So it is important to recognize that Charlie Kirk will go down as one of the most historic figures of this era. Charlie Kirk will be in history books. There will be biographies written about Charlie Kirk. There are millions of people that have been forever changed by listening to Charlie Kirk, and millions more because of what just happened to Charlie Kirk with his murder. And that murder, that assassination, will only make his legacy and his message that he worked so hard to evangelize even louder than it already is. I have firm confidence in that. When you martyr somebody, you better hope, honestly, that you pick the wrong person to kill, which hardly people ever do, because when you kill somebody that's like Charlie, you will get a million of him back, and we'll talk about that as well. So the best way to take this forward to honor Charlie, and I didn't know Charlie personally, but the best way you could honor Charlie, and we could honor Charlie, is to make sure that we get his message right. So what is it? What was Charlie Kirk's message? And I made a raw video the night of the assassination on my YouTube, and thank you all for watching it and for mostly the kind words that were on there, and so in the comments and whatever. But what I said on that video, I want to extrapolate on here because I've gathered my thoughts at least hopefully slightly better than I did on that raw video. But I think Charlie's legacy came down to two things, and what he believed most fervently came down to two things. The first thing is to talk to one another. We have to talk to one another. We have to have dialogue. We have to have conversation. And Charlie was so unique in this regard, and he shouldn't have been, but he was. And actually, I think that this part was more so than the others, because Charlie, he didn't mind being spit at. he got assaulted, he got yelled at, insulted, whatever. And Charlie didn't care that that happened to him. I'm sure he did at some degree, but he didn't let that deter him, didn't let that stop him. Charlie wanted to go where the fight was, but he didn't want to go where the fight was to fight. And that's the key, because a good conversation, like a fight and a conversation, are two different things. When you're fighting with someone, it's different than talking with someone. They're two different things. Charlie did not go on college campuses and speak at events and talk to people and die to fight with people. And we should make that very, very clear, especially because they killed Charlie for this. Because the people that killed Charlie thought that he was some kind of a sadist, a guy that just punched people in the face everywhere. That's not who Charlie was. And it's despicable and it's evil to say that that's who Charlie was. Charlie wanted to talk to people. He didn't want to fight with people. He went to the fight, but he went to be a peacemaker. He went to be an evangelist for the values that he believed in. Charlie said, there's this quote that's been circulating, I can't get it out of my head since. And so Charlie said very openly on mic, and he wrote it as well, openly and correctly. Charlie said that if a society stops talking, that society descends into civil war, which is 100% true. You look at the French Revolution, you look at all of the stuff that's going on. I think there was a government overthrow in like Nepal this week. They were forced to overthrow the Nepalese government on Discord, is what I heard, because the government stopped listening to them, and the government stopped talking to them, and the government didn't stop listening to the people of that region of the world. And I think that that's such an important lesson because, again, Charlie got into confrontations on campus, but it wasn't because Charlie wanted to like dunk on the libs or something, which we as conservatives have done way too much of. Like no more destroys videos. Charlie Kirk never put out a destroys video that I've seen. Now, Charlie Kirk dunked on people when they didn't see his point of view and they wanted to insult him. Charlie was very capable of defending himself in that way. But Charlie's posture towards all of these events was not to say, hey, your views are stupid and my views are correct, and look how stupid your views are. Charlie wanted to talk to people. He wanted to be a part of what would evangelize the MAGA movement, the conservative movement, the Christian movement that's going on in our country, to young people especially, who responded to Charlie in amazing numbers. And now that Charlie's gone, it's only going to get his content out there even more. So that was the first thing. I think the first thing that Charlie, of his two things, of what Charlie's legacy would want to be is we can't stop talking to each other. We can't. We can't stop trying to persuade people and to guide them onto a value-oriented path. And the second thing, the thing that Charlie really wanted to do, which I mentioned in my monologue a bit, but the second thing that Charlie wanted his legacy to be was to believe in Jesus Christ, to believe in God. Charlie, more than anything else in the world, wanted to be an evangelist. He wanted to tell people about Jesus. He wanted to pivot so much so that he wanted to pivot the primary goal of Turning Point, the biggest political activist organization of the conservative movement in the world right now. I don't care about the Heritage Foundation. And I love Kevin Roberts, by the way, but I don't care about the Heritage Foundation. I don't care about AAI. I don't care about all these other, think tanks. Turning Point USA is by far the most culturally important conservative institution in the space, bar none. Bar none. I knew because I've seen it grow. There's nothing like it, especially for young people. And Charlie wanted to pivot his life's message so that more people didn't just become conservatives, but they became Christians, so they believed in Jesus. And there's so many viral clips of Charlie circulating over the last couple of days, obviously, because Charlie had so many of them. But the one that I've seen over and over again, and I think Allie Beth Stuckey played this on her show as well, was basically of a young man on a college campus who was definitely, from what it looks like, a leftist, came up to him and asked him if Charlie was a Christian, which is funny because Charlie talked about his faith so much. But he asked Charlie if he was a Christian, and Charlie said, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm a Christian. And he asked him why, and he said, well, do you want a historical argument or do you want like just a purely rational argument? And he said, I'll take the rational argument. And Charlie said, if there is nothing in the Bible that if adopted makes your life worse, and that divine help is needed in a fallen world, which is obviously true. And Charlie just goes down the list like, believe in God. Please accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Do what you need to do. And so this is the most, I think, and Charlie was working very hard to change this, and I think he was succeeding at this because I knew a lot of the pastors that knew Charlie. I know Alan Jackson a bit. I follow Mark Driscoll. With Jack Hibbs, all these guys that are just titans of the Protestant evangelical faith. They knew they were coming around, and people were saying like, "What's going on here? What is this?" And so the most misunderstood thing about him, and I think even in the media and even in a bunch of other things, and they've smeared Charlie as like, oh, he's a Christian nationalist, he's this, he's whatever. It's like, okay, whatever. But Charlie was, at the end of the day, not a conservative that liked Christianity or a politician who liked Christianity. He was a Christian who liked politics. That's who Charlie Kirk was at the end of the day. He was not a politically minded person who tossed and salted faith on top of his politics. He was a faith-driven person that salted his faith with politics. That's exactly who Charlie was. And that's exactly what people don't understand about where Charlie was coming from with all this. And Charlie was working to improve that image of himself, and it was working. But he didn't get the time to do that. And that's really what we must do. So if we want to do ourselves some good and to honor Charlie's memory properly, those two things are what is required to do so. We need to talk to people about everything, not fight with people. If it comes to that, fine, but approach it with a posture of talking to people. And we need to spread the gospel. God is the only solution. Jesus is the only way that this is going to get fixed. A revival of Christian ethics, of Protestant, most specifically Christianity. And I love a lot of Catholics out there. I love J.D. Vance, who carried Charlie's casket onto Air Force Two yesterday at the time of this recording. If we want to keep this moving, and if we want the movement that Charlie started, that Turning Point, started, we need to talk to people, and we need to talk about Jesus. And Charlie proved this. There's a game plan. There's a blueprint for this now because Charlie proved it as such. We flipped the young vote. We appealed to young women to become conservative. No one has ever done that in my life except for Charlie, or as good as Charlie. So we can do this. This momentum does not have to die with Charlie Kirk. But it will if we don't do what Charlie said. If we don't go where everyone else fears to tread, to college campuses, to inner cities, to the urban metropolises, all these type of places that are like, oh, we can't find conservatives or Christians here or whatever. I don't care. I don't care if you can't. Go find them. Go seek them. All these seeker-sensitive churches out there, all these holier-than-thou politicians, your time is done because Charlie proved you wrong. So Charlie and his legacy will live on if we do what he said, if we go where everyone fears to tread, if we spread the gospel. But if we keep doing what we have been doing and what we basically outsource Charlie to do and say, hey, Charlie, go out and do this, we will never get anywhere, ever. The choice is ours. And if we want to honor Charlie, if we really want Charlie's message to keep going, that is what we need to do. It's what we need to do. So on that point of Charlie doing what Charlie did, Charlie was a lot of things. Charlie was not a moderate. Charlie wasn't an extremist. Charlie wasn't, what everyone described him as, like this awful person who wants to be like a fascist or whatever. Charlie wasn't that. But Charlie wasn't a moderate either. Charlie went hard. He said, I watched Steve Deace, if you ever watch this. Steve Deace had such a beautiful show the day after Charlie's assassination. Him and Steve were very close. And Steve is one of my favorite commentators in the world, such a titan for the faith, such a warrior for the faith. And he's told the story of when an event like when him and Charlie were just starting to get to know each other, and they were going to go speak on a stage together. And before, Charlie was really tall. Charlie was like 6'5". Steve, I guess, is like average height. He's around like 5'11" or 6 foot. And Charlie apparently bent down to Steve, and he's told him, he just said, go hard. And then Charlie Kirk and Steve Dace, everyone. And they walked out, and Steve was like, what? And then they just walked out on the stage. It was so funny. And Charlie went hard, man. He went hard. And what this proves, getting into a more serious tone now, is that one of my favorite quotes ever, and one that I'm just discovering is so much wiser and so much more real than I ever thought it was in Star Wars: A New Hope. So the original Star Wars. So when the original crew, when Leia, Han Solo, the droids, R2-D2, C-3PO, and Princess are going to rescue Princess Leia, Obi-Wan Kenobi's there. Obi-Wan Kenobi goes to shut down the tractor beams so the Millennium Falcon can fly away. If you're skip over this part if you need to, if you're not getting the nerd, but get the quote. So Obi-Wan goes away from his task of shutting down the tractor beam to confront Darth Vader, who is his former apprentice, Anakin Skywalker. Spoiler alert, sorry, you should have seen the movie by now. That's not my fault. But he goes to confront Darth Vader, and Darth Vader kind of starts like talking mess to him and says like, I'm so much, I was once the apprentice, but now I'm the master, all these type of things. And Obi-Wan says back to him, strike me down and I shall become more powerful than you can ever imagine. And it gives me goosebumps just saying it, because it's so true. And like I mentioned earlier, this is exactly what happens when you martyr somebody. They become more powerful after you kill them. And make no mistake about it, Charlie Kirk is a martyr. He is a Christian martyr, first and foremost. He is a conservative martyr. He is a American martyr. He is a values martyr. And this is exactly what's going to happen with Charlie if we proceed properly from this horrible assassination of Charlie Kirk. This has already started to happen in terms of no more live and let live. No more, it's just, it's a both sides thing. We'll get to that in a second. To put it as plainly as I possibly can, the moderate right is, and if it is, it should not be, a thing no longer. Moderation is over. Charlie Kirk tried to be moderate, and they killed him for it. They shot him in the neck for it. Moderation is no longer a thing for conservatives, for Christians, and shame on you if you believe that it is. If you believe that being passive is still acceptable. It's not. It's never been. And Charlie was not passive. He tried to approach it in a passive way, and they killed him for it. No more passivity. No more moderation. We go hard, like Charlie Kirk told Steve Dace. So the both sides, I'm trying to calm myself down. The both sides argument of, well, there's extremes on both sides. Well, we need to see both sides of this. No. That's gone, brother. That's gone. That argument is dead and buried with Charlie Kirk. Charlie tried. He was the only one, by the way, that tried to bridge that gap and reason with the unreasonable. And he got through to some, but he didn't with others. And the animals that he tried to reason with, that Charlie tried to tame, killed him for it. And I'm not blaming Charlie at all. I'm not. I'm certainly not trying to victim blame for his death. Charlie could have never seen that coming. No one could have seen that coming. But this was a wake-up call for people who needed it, including me. And I think I've been beating this drum more than anything else, but now I'm radicalized to this drum. The solution for our problems in our country is not compromise. It is not meeting across the aisle. It is not reaching our hand across the aisle. It is not ceding ground. It is digging your heels in so hard and so deep that you will have no choice but to persuade people. Becoming so convicted in what you believe that you are willing to do what Charlie Kirk did and take a bullet for it. Do not compromise. If you compromise, they'll kill you. Charlie Kirk proved that with his life. We must dig our heels in so hard, so deep. We must punch so hard that you will have no choice but to persuade people because you are so staunch in your beliefs. Because the other thing that we have to come to terms with, and something that was proven, unfortunately, with the death of Charlie Kirk, with the killing of Charlie Kirk, was that we are not the same. The Christian conservative coalition is not the same as what Charlie Kirk was trying to persuade. Let me give you some examples. Tim Walz, who would have been vice president of the United States if Donald Trump and J.D. Vance didn't win, thank God for that. He was talking at a rally the other day in his home state of Minnesota about how he's eagerly awaiting Trump to die. Look up the clip. Jesse Kelly has it on his show. Well, he's not going to die now, but we'll wait. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me. But we're going to have to wait a little longer for that day to happen, for Trump to die. Openly, in front of people, and the animals at that rally were cheering when Tim Walz was talking about Donald Trump, the sitting president of the United States, who already got shot at twice and hit once in the head to die. How about Luigi Mangione, that psychopath who shot and murdered and assassinated the CEO of a major healthcare corporation? And I know people have issues with the healthcare system, but you can't kill people. And more importantly, you cannot make an idol out of an assassin, which Taylor Lorenz, that sick journalist, quote-unquote journalist, has done. And what so many people on the left have done, merch, candles, everything like this. Steve Scalise, how about going back to 2017 when Steve Scalise and other Republican operatives were shot by a Bernie Sanders supporter? I'm not blaming Bernie Sanders. He can't control this person. But these are the people that we're dealing with. The Trump assassination attempts. That crazy guy down in Florida with the automatic weapon who wanted to volunteer for the Ukrainian militia. And that CIA asset or intelligence asset that nearly took his head off in Butler, Pennsylvania. In a very similar and ironic in the worst sense of the word way that Charlie Kirk died this week. So what does that mean? What that means, the modern left in this regard is a death cult. It is a death cult. They are a culture that is glorifying and celebrating and encouraging violence, not just in the ways that we talked about. Abortion, cutting off the healthy body parts of children, foreign warmongering, everything like this. They're a death cult. And we need to start viewing it as such. This is demonic. This is evil. Many of them, I skipped over this part of the Steve Day show, but I'm going to watch it again today. I've been staying away from the tweets and from the videos and the TikToks of all the sick, evil, demon-possessed people that are dancing on the grave of Charlie Kirk and are celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. And the reality is we can look at the people on TikTok, all of the teachers. By the way, pull your kids out of those goddamn schools. I'm sorry for blaspheming. Pull your kids out of those schools. I just made a point out of this. Get your kids out of these college campuses where people think it's okay for a young 31-year-old father of two to get shot in the throat when your kid maybe could be in the audience. Many of them, and by the way, many of the people that follow them would not take back what just happened to Charlie Kirk. As pointed out by Charlie himself, prophetically and tragically. This is another social media post that he had out. Charlie Kirk, I think, wrote it about 2 weeks before he was assassinated. The culture of assassination in America is rising. He had data to prove this. An outrageous number of people want to use violence and death to silence their political enemies on the left. This is not a fringe position. Many of them, if you put them on a polygraph, would not take back what just happened to Charlie. They wouldn't. Stop lying to yourself as such. The data is there. The videos are there. The writings are there. Shout out to Libs of TikTok and to Robbie Starbuck and to Benny Johnson and to all the people online that are exposing these people and getting these people fired for what they're saying about Charlie Kirk had it coming or catch this fascist or whatever. These people are evil. Now, we must be righteous in doing this. I'm trying to calm myself down again. We must be righteous in doing this. But it is time for a vibe shift around how we handle ourselves here. And that vibe shift is as such. No quarter, no mercy, no compromise when it comes to doing the right thing, particularly when it comes to Christianity and all of us who love God, as Charlie did. I put out a tweet after Charlie got assassinated. Look at the Christian leaders in the world and in your life. Watch what they say, if they say anything at all. If they do not say anything, and if they do not condemn, and not only condemn, but say that it is evil what happened to Charlie Kirk. And by the way, what's happening in all of our schools across the country, those poor little Catholic kids that got killed by that demonic psychopath up in Minnesota. Tim Walls' estate, by the way. If they do not say anything about this, if they do not condemn this openly in front of the congregation, you need to leave that church. And shame on that pastor, shame on that priest, shame on that congregation for taking the name of Jesus and not saying anything about what happened to Charlie Kirk. Shame on you. My church did something in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination and the aftermath of these terrible killings in these Catholic schools. And by the way, September 11th was yesterday at the time of this recording. We didn't get to honor those people as much as we should have because of what happened with Charlie. And I'm sure Charlie is wanting us to. But my church stood in the gap. They put out a social media post and condemned all of this. They opened the church doors the next morning after Charlie Kirk's assassination and said, anyone who wants to come and pray, we're having a prayer service. If you can come, do so. We're going to be praying between the hours of 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. Come to church. Be around believers. And I'm so proud that my church did that. Red Rocks Austin, my 3 pastors, Doug Weckerman, Ryan Weckerman, Ethan Matat, and all of that staff over there, all of whom I love, they stood in the gap. They said this was wrong. Not only wrong, but evil. What happened with Charlie Kirk. So now, all of us who believed in what Charlie Kirk believed in, particularly if you proclaim to be a Christian, we must be forceful and unapologetic when it comes to our values. And we must do everything in our power to rip the guts and the roots out of the demonic counter-argument that opposes us. We cannot let this stand. Steve Deace on his show today called it political sadism. I couldn't find a better description. Anyone in your life that celebrates the death of Charlie Kirk, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, correct them, shame them, report them to their employer, tell their wife. You cannot stand by while this happens. You cannot. If you proclaim to be sorry for Charlie's death and you do not do anything, you are a part of the problem, and not only you're part of the problem, you are worse than that. You are part of the opposition. Because this is evil. And evil never stops itself. Whew. Okay. Calming myself down in my happy place. So one of the ways that we can do that we can fight, that we can rip out root and branch this demonic political sadism, counter-oppression that we're seeing in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination and all these tragedies across our country is to not shut up. Because the biggest thing, and the thing that's driven me nuts more than anything else, the biggest thing that the left and the secular have shouted at us over time, over the last 10 years especially, was to shut up and to not talk about things. Don't talk about us cutting off healthy body parts of children. Don't talk about the racist stuff we're teaching your kids in schools. Don't talk about the COVID vax. Don't talk about the war in Ukraine. Don't talk about this. Shut up. And sadly, a lot of people, myself included, said, okay, yes, Daddy, tell me what to do. But now, the game has changed now. It is no longer an option to shut up. It is no longer an option to stay quiet. It is no longer an option to not talk about things, especially value-driven things and your values, because Charlie was killed for it. Charlie was murdered for the only reason that he voiced his First Amendment rights. The banner that was under the tent that he was in when he was assassinated said, "Jesus is Lord, prove me wrong." Words. That was what got Charlie killed. I don't like what Charlie Kirk says, so I'm going to get a deer hunting rifle with a 30-plus caliber round and take out half of his neck. So for us to not get loud, to not get frantic about what we believe in and what Charlie believed in, would be to spit in the face of his memory. And I mean that. And I'm making this episode very, very clear because I am forcing myself to step my game up in this as well. We must get very loud, and tell everyone else who says that you should not be to screw off. You're not welcome here. You are not. You're a pansy. You're a wuss. You're weak. Get off of our team. We don't want you. Because guess what? We got a militia of people that Charlie talked to that are chomping at the bit to come up to take their place, and they should. Because this is where the left has kicked our asses, and the secular has kicked our asses for the last 50, 60 years at least. They have not shut up. They have not obeyed. They have not said, yes, Daddy, when we have asked nicely. And we should ask nicely in some cases. But not when they bite your hand. Not when they kick you in the teeth. Not when they assassinate Charlie Kirk. We must stop asking nicely. We need to. It is not an option to ask nicely anymore. And we must force our hand on this side as well. We must inspire other people to raise their voices, to stand up. I am not putting my pronouns in my email signature, Mr. and Mrs. Corporate Executive. I am not flying a rainbow flag outside of my church, Mr. and Mrs. Pastor. I am not getting my child vaccinated with the COVID vax school board. What are you going to do? We need to get up in their grill, respectfully and with virtue, but get up in their grill and challenge them like they have with us, because we have the better ideas. We've proven that. Even when we haven't fought, we've proven that. It only took one guy to start fighting, Donald Trump. One guy, and I know he's the president of the United States, and I know he's one of the most famous men in the history of the world. It took one guy, and it changed the entire conversation. Imagine millions of that, and we will get millions of that if we do this right. Because Donald Trump inspired people like Charlie Kirk and J.D. Vance and Benny Johnson and Tucker Carlson to do the exact same thing. Candace Owens, do the exact same thing. So on that point, with us, we need to show up with actual ideas, counter arguments, and things that are constructive, like Charlie did every single time he showed up. Charlie Kirk never got into an emotional he said, she said, you're stupid, I'm smart argument. Charlie brought receipts every single time he debated somebody. He never let his emotions get the best of him, ever. Versus the things that the left brings, that the secular brings, that only destroy and do nothing more than to make the issues completely based on feelings or on facts. This is where we've also been wrong. And I've been very impressed with Ben Shapiro in the last couple of days. He's been very clear on this. So good for Ben. I've been hard on Ben in the past. But Ben has been great on this. But this is one thing where Ben has gone wrong in the past. Facts don't care about your feelings. Wrong. Facts and feelings matter. We must reason with people, as Charlie did, but, and as Ben has advocated for, but that involves going where he went, where Charlie went, and with a passion. We need to bring feelings into this. The feelings of goodness also. It is good to get married. It is good to have a family. It is good to be a Christian. It is good to be all of these things. So, if anybody is watching this that is wondering what is going to happen with me or with anybody else that I know, at least, that is in this space, we will not shut up. We will not obey. No more. No mas. The days of the Mr. Nice Guy conservative Christian class are over. Particularly in my generation, in Gen Z, they are over. No more Hawaiian shirts, pleated khakis, youth pastor, beer gut. No more. You may have killed Charlie, but you've given birth to thousands, if not more, and probably more, of people who are wired just like him and believe what he believed and did what he did. And you should hope and pray that we are not as effective. And we won't be in single-person fashion. We will never replace Charlie Kirk in terms of a sole person that did what he did. We will never replace that. You're right. But collectively, we will rise up and we will overwhelm you. And we will do that joyfully and happily because we're right and you're wrong. Our ideas are good. Your ideas are evil. And at the end of the day, that always is what matters because good will always win. So Charlie's assassination is a bat signal to all of us who love Charlie, all of us who believe what Charlie believed. Because if you didn't know you're in a fight, you're in one now. And if you don't know you're in one now, you're not awake. And I don't know what will wake you up if Charlie's assassination didn't. You are in a fight. I don't care if you don't want to. I don't care if you're not a fighter. You have been thrown into the ring, and you have been for a while. You are thrown into the ring. They're trying to kill us now. They've succeeded in taking out one of our top general, as many people have said. And they did with Charlie. You are in a fight. I don't care if you don't want to. I don't care if you don't think you're in one. You are. So if you believe what Charlie believed, especially if you're a Christian, and you know this if you're a Christian, if you're a true believer, but if you don't, here's your warning. You're a target now. You're next. They will not stop with Charlie. They won't. Because we thought they would stop with Trump in some cases. They didn't. They killed Charlie right after they tried to kill Trump twice. Brett Kavanaugh, Steve Scalise. They will come for you too if you're not careful. So you need to be ready for that. We're all Charlie Kirk now. The way you can be best ready for that is to adopt the mentality of becoming exactly like Charlie was. Someone who was courageous, someone who was unafraid, someone who would go to wherever everyone else is afraid to go, to be called names, have the conversation, be a part of the solution. Charlie was always ready for a fight. He was always training, always putting in the work, always there, always trying to get better, sharpening his skills, and never losing courage. You're in a fight. You must be ready. Because even though there will never be another Charlie Kirk, there will never be. Hate to burst your bubble. If you think there will be, there won't. But we are all Charlie Kirk now. We are all Charlie Kirk now. We are next up on the list. That is how you should treat it. They're coming for me next. They're coming for my values. They're coming for my church. They're coming for my family. This is not a call to be paranoid, but this is the reality of the situation. If you are a conservative Christian, a value-driven person, a traditional values person, they hate you just as much as they hate Charlie. And that also means you need to be next up to the plate. You can either sit back and cower and think that it's not you. You can live in naivety if you want. I don't recommend it. But that's where you've been for a while. How's that worked out for us so far, if you believe what Charlie believed? Or you can step up and challenge yourself to get out there, get in the game, and do something about what you claim to value so highly. If you claim these values, fight for them, damn it. Get out there, do something. Go to your school board, start a podcast talking about this stuff. Homeschool your kids. Go back to church. Do something. The best testament to a man's life is what he leaves behind. It's his legacy. Charlie's legacy, among being a husband, among being a father, is that he left behind a commission to raise up new leaders and to get people to follow in his footsteps. And we must follow it, even if it means ostracization, villainization, death. That is the call of the value-oriented individual. That is the call of the Christian. And I'll see you there. Before I end, I do want to say Glenn Beck has posted a fundraiser for Charlie's family. His goal is to raise enough money to take care of his wife, Erica, and their two beautiful children for the rest of their lives. Tucker Carlson has posted a Give, Send, Go as well. They've seeded it with $1 million from his company, Alp, the nicotine pouch company. Both of those are up online. Go to Glenn and Tucker's social medias. They're there. I know there's a lot of stuff out there, but if there's anything out there, find it. But Glenn and Tucker, excuse me, go donate. They need it. Show you're not afraid. And please help out Erica, help out their two babies, because they're really going to need, and please pray for them. Please. Thank you all for watching. Own the day. Open your mind. I'll see you guys next week.